because I am not a musician myself. I took 6 years of piano lessons when I was a kid, but I remember about four notes. But music has always figured very prominently in my life. I remember my folks gave me a radio when I was a kid, and it would be on in my room all the time. When I was in college, I had a radio show in the morning from 6 to 9 a.m. and was exposed to a lot of great music and a lot of great artists. And I find music inspires me. It inspires me to be creative. It inspires me to keep a smile on my face. And it just inspires me to have a very sort of uplifting and upbeat perspective on life. So I have found myself drawn to telling stories of great musicians who have A, found success on their own terms, and B, have found ways to keep their music vital and fresh over the decades. You know, there are a lot of musicians, many of whom have played somewhere in Vegas, you'll pardon the expression, over the years. And, you know, they're one-hit wonders or maybe one album. But I'm much more interested in looking at careers of people who have been able to surpass that and exceed that in a way that makes them unique. So you look at people like Paul McCartney or, Sergio and a lot of other people who have careers that have spanned over 6 decades. And not everybody can do that. And I'm fascinated about what is it about those musicians that enables them to accomplish that, as well as to create music that really speaks to people of different generations.
I mean, there are very few people that, especially nowadays, that could kind of transcend that. I mean, Trent Reznor is probably the only one I can think of off the top of my head that has really kind of transcended, where he's working with a lot of different artists. He's working with a lot of different people as well. I mean, nowadays it seems like it's just, they people work with people and then, or, they kind of, get their 15 minutes and kind of go out and kind of, don't do anything as well. But, I mean, it's kind of tougher and tougher nowadays to kind of see some of those people that do have kind of a legacy that's going on. And it'll be interesting to see who kind of surpassed the decades, as it were, in terms of music, even as a producer or somebody that works with other artists like Sergio has. So I'm interested to see who kind of the next person is that kind of steps up and really kind of starts working with other artists and really, starts to affect the music industry, which really needs a kind of an uplifting a little bit, I think. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on in the next couple of years. Maybe Sergio will work with another artist and things will change in another direction. So fingers crossed on that. One last question. I mean, I know you have projects kind of going on right now behind the scenes or whatever, but is there any certain stories that you would love to tell?
Yeah, I can tell you about one of them, Mark. We announced this one last November, and we're about halfway through production at the moment. It's a story that blends music and politics and social commentary and something of a mystery, and it all involves a jazz rock band called Blood, Sweat, and Tears. And they were huge in 1969 and 1970. And then something happened. And it affected their career trajectory. And it's why we don't remember them as well as we may remember a few other groups from that era. But it's a very compelling story. And actually, one element of it involves Las Vegas. They were the first rock band to play a primary showroom at a hotel in Las Vegas. They played Caesar's Palace. A lot of the rock bands had played lounges, and then Elvis, but he wasn't really a rock band. He was a star. But they were the first rock band. They played Caesar's Palace, and it was a very, today so many rock bands play Vegas and do quite well. But Blood, Sweat, and Tears was the first, and it was not as well accepted then as it is now. And we talk a little bit about that. But it's a fascinating story about a terrifically talented group of musicians. I'll bet a lot of your listeners know their music. They had 4 big hits in 1969. Spinning Wheel, What Goes Up, Must Come Down, You Made Me So Very Happy, and When I Die, and more and more. And we still hear them on the radio today. So again, as you and I were talking earlier, it's a band whose music lasts, although it's music from a very specific time. So we're going to tell the story of what happened in 1970, and I think people will be really fascinated by it.
Yeah, times have been weirdly changing pretty much for the past couple decades. So, things happen. So I'm interested to see what goes on with that as well. And, Sergio Mendes and Friends, a celebration that's on PBS coming up it's starting on June 1st. Check your local listings on PBS to find out when it's airing. And, hopefully we'll get the full documentary streaming somewhere. And, if you bring it to PBS, maybe you'll be able to get a DVD as well. Look out for their, when they start fundraising. Make sure you guys check that out as well. And I also want to mention Alpert Is currently streaming on Amazon. You guys can check out that documentary as well. Anything else that you can think of? Anything you also want to add?
Not at the moment, Mark. I think we covered it. I will say I've done documentaries on a lot of artists who are no longer with us. Herb and Sergio are 2 exceptions to that. And I've got to say, in both cases, but here we are talking about Sergio, it's been such a pleasure to get to know them as people and to now call them as friends of mine. And that's just an extra bonus in addition to making films of which I am very proud. It was just great to meet and get to know these 2 artists who are just real gentlemen and lovely, warm, sensitive artists. And the fact that we are now friends is that little extra bonus.
Well, if you're ever out here in Vegas, let me know. There's so many great artists that are actually out here doing residencies and all that. So it's crazy to be able to think that Blood, Sweat, and Tears kind of almost started that idea of having rock bands out here too. So it'll be great to see once that comes out as well. Where can people find you on social media?
I am on Instagram, and I am. They can go to crewneckproductions.com, and they can also find me on Facebook under Crewneck Productions, also under John Scheinfeld.
Well, John, thanks a lot for joining us. Best of luck to you this year. I look forward to your upcoming projects and keep things rolling.
Will do, Mark. Thanks for having me. All the best to you and your listeners.
Make sure you guys subscribe to us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. We are based out of Spreaker.com right now, but we also are on a bunch of different other platforms, including iHeartRadio. And you guys can even ask Alexa to play Somewhere in Vegas, latest episode as well. So make sure you guys check that out as well. And you guys can, like I said, check us out at Spreaker.com and to look up for Somewhere in Vegas, and you'll be able to find a lot of our old episodes as well. We're going to try to press on a little bit, maybe doing 1 episode a week for the summer as things kind of start rolling and everything like that. Everything is kind of rolling out here in Vegas. We're going to be opening up soon, so we'll be having a lot more guests coming in that are actually going to be out here performing, so it's great to be able to do that as well. So make sure you guys definitely check out our Instagram and our at SWIV Podcast, at SWIV Podcast, also on Twitter at SWIV, and Somewhere in Vegas on Facebook as well. With that in mind, we'll see you guys next week here on Somewhere in Vegas.